embarrassingly, rightfully, that I called Europe, NATO countries, EU countries, you can call it either way because they're very similar, but that I caught them buying oil from Russia. And he said, that's not good. I mean, I appreciated that he said that. He said, that's not good. Now, how about that?
U.S. President Donald Trump claimed that the UK Prime Minister supported his criticism of NATO and EU countries over their continued energy purchases from Russia, despite the West's broader stance on sanctions, calling it a key obstacle to achieving peace in Ukraine. Speaking to reporters aboard Air Force One on his way back from the United Kingdom, Trump recounted his exchange with the UK Prime Minister. He said Starmer was embarrassed when Trump called out NATO and EU countries for continuing to buy oil from Russia. According to Trump, Starmer admitted it was not good, while at the same time appreciating Trump for raising the issue. Trump added, "How about that?" Trump further stated that the UK PM Keir Starmer expressed willingness to take action on the issue. He also agrees to stop buying oil from Russia, and he's willing to impose sanctions too. And he's not one of the culprits in terms of Russian oil, Trump added.
Well, we made a deal with the UK, and some of those companies have made a deal with the UK, but there's always strings to the US. I help them. I help them. I want to help them. I want them to be strong as a country. I think it's important that the UK be strong. And we're so strong financially that we can get people to do other things.
Is Starmer trying to talk to you about Ukraine? Did the Prime Minister talk to you about Ukraine? He indicated he did. What were his arguments for what you
He
said?
was really a little bit embarrassed, and he's rightfully, that I called Europe, NATO countries, EU countries, you can call it either way because they're very similar, but that I caught them buying oil from Russia. And he said, that's not good. I mean, I appreciated that he said that. He said, that's not good. Now, how about that? We're supposed to do all this stuff, and they're buying oil from Russia. That's not good. Do you agree? That's about pretty much all we do.
Did he say that he would be
I'd
open
like to
to...
have me do something. But he also agrees they have to stop buying oil from Russia.
Did he say that they would also be willing to do sanctions? That he would be willing to do sanctions?
He said he would do sanctions, yes. And he's not one of the culprits in terms of the oil.
The remarks appear to underline ongoing tensions over Europe's energy dependence on Russia, which has remained a point of friction between Washington and several NATO allies. He reiterated his belief that cutting off Russian oil exports is essential to bringing an end to the war in Ukraine. Trump also admitted that the conflict in Ukraine has proven more complex than he had initially expected.
We're going to finish the wars. We have a couple of them going, as you know. You look at Gaza, you look at Russia, Ukraine. We're working on that, and I'm working with Congress on it, but I think we'll get it. We did do 7. We actually did more than 7, which people don't like to talk about. But I say that and the economy, always the economy. Especially bringing down the oil further. If we get the oil down, that war ends.
Trump has consistently criticized NATO and EU nations for what he sees as a contradiction, relying on U.S. defense support while continuing economic ties with Russia through energy trade.
Well, they're not doing the job. NATO has to get together. Europe has to get together and do it. Look, Europe they're my friends, but they're buying oil from Russia. So we can't be expected to be the only ones that are, full bore. But Europe is buying oil from Russia. I don't want them to buy oil. And the sanctions that they're putting on are not tough enough. And I'm willing to do sanctions, but they're going to have to toughen up their sanctions commensurate with what I'm doing. Well, I'm ready to move ahead, but they have to do it. I think they will. But right now they're talking and they're not doing it. Look, they're buying oil from Russia. We're not buying oil from Russia. They're buying a lot of oil from Russia. That's not the deal. And I stopped 7 wars. I thought this was going to be an easy one for me, but this has turned out to be tough. The hatred between Zelensky and Putin is unfathomable.
Do you still believe that they will talk? That they will have a...
I don't know. I think I'm going to have to do all the talking. They hate each other.
When do you think that will take place?
I don't know, relatively soon.
Have any of the NATO
We're going to get
members-
it worked out one way or the other, but relatively soon.
Have any of the NATO
They hate
members
each other
started-
so much they can't breathe. So I'm going to have to get involved.
We make the best equipment, the best missiles, the best of everything. The European nations know that. And we've made a deal today, and I'm going to have Mark speak about it, but we've made a deal today where we are going to be sending them weapons and they're going to be paying for them. The United States will not be having any payment made. We are not buying it, but we will manufacture it and they're going to be paying for it. Our last meeting of a month ago was very successful in that they agreed to 5%, which is more than $1 trillion a year, so they have a lot of money. And these are wealthy nations. They have a lot of money, and they want to do it. They feel very strongly about it, and we feel strongly about it, too. But we're in for a lot of money, and we don't want to do anymore, and we can't. But we make the best, and we're going to be sending the best to NATO, and in some cases to maybe, at Mark's suggestion, if we go to Germany, where they're going to send early on missiles, and they'll be replaced, and NATO is going to take care of it. It's going to be coordinated by NATO, and they're going to work very much with Matt Whitaker, who's right here, who's a great ambassador, and Matt's going to be coordinating. You better do a good job, Matt.
I will.
But Matt's going to coordinate. He's a very talented guy. He's going to coordinate everything. So in a nutshell, we're going to make top-of-the-line weapons, and they'll be sent to NATO. NATO may choose to have certain of them sent to other countries where we can get a little additional speed, where the country will release something and it'll be mostly in the form of a replacement. And I'd like to have Mark, and again, just a highly respected, pretty young guy for having had the career that he's had, because he had an amazing career before going to NATO. So we spent a lot of time together over the last couple of months. And if you could say a few words.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
No, Mr. President, dear Donald, this is really big. This is really big. You called me on Thursday that you had taken a decision. And the decision is that you want Ukraine what it needs to have to maintain, to be able to defend itself against Russia, but you don't want Europeans to pay for it, which is totally logical. And this is building on the tremendous success of the NATO summit. The 5%, but also the decision to keep Ukraine strong and the decision to increase our defense industrial production. So based on that, that was Europe stepping up. This is again Europeans stepping up. So I've been in contact with many countries. I can tell you that at this moment, Germany massively, but also Finland and Denmark and Sweden and Norway, the United Kingdom, the Netherlands, Canada, they all want to be part of this, and this is only the first wave. There will be more. So what we will do is work through the NATO systems to make sure that we know what Ukrainians need, so that we can make packages. Of course, in a way, we discussed it this morning with Pete Hegseth at the Pentagon, in a way that, of course, the US will keep on its stockpiles necessary to defend this country. That's absolutely clear. But it will mean that Ukraine can get its hands on really massive numbers of military equipment, both for air defense, but also missiles, ammunition, etc., etc. So if I was Vladimir Putin today and hear you speaking about what you are planning to do in 50 days and this announcement, I would reconsider whether I should not take negotiations about Ukraine more seriously than I was doing at the moment, if I was Vladimir Putin. But when I'm Ukraine, I think this is really great news for them. So I really want to thank you for that, and it means the Europeans paying for it. And again, I mentioned all these countries, we will deal with that. And exactly as you said, it might also mean that countries will move equipment fast into Ukraine, and then the US later backfilling it, because speed is of the essence here. So really, thank you. This is important.